It's Carco and Carne. We are live on a Monday night. Carco and Carne still in quarantine. Hashtag quarantine con Carne. I'm James Van Osdell. Carco and Carne sponsored tonight by C&H Financial Services. C&H offers a variety of products ranging from traditional merchant accounts to a zero-cost payment processing solution, which eliminates the expenses tied to accepting credit cards. C&H also offers cost-effective commercial lending programs, which can help you get your business the money it needs to make it through these unprecedented times. To learn more, contact C&H Financial Services at 855-600-2437 or go to chfs.us. So tonight, as we are in quarantine, my guest tonight, he is a super talented artist. He is Jay Ryan. He's the Bird Machine, joining me from his studio tonight, which is very cool. That you're burning the midnight oil, so to speak, in your studio.
A little bit, yeah.
So for context, I mean, you can see one of your posters in the background. I really kind of know you. Well, actually, let me take a step back. I know you from Dianoga, the band. But I also know you really from your gig posters, your concert posters, which are so striking, very animal centric, very lovely and fun. And I want to talk about your background in screen printing and poster making. But before we get there, let's go back to the 1990s, the music scene. I mean, you were part of it. You were uber indie rock back in the day. What was it like coming up in that scene?
Well, I was in school in Champaign during a time when there was a lot of started to be a lot of sort of post Nirvana like label interest, looking for the next Seattle, the next Athens, and there was a time near the end of, well, say 93 or 94, where a lot of the bands from Champaign were getting signed. I finished school there in 94 and moved to Chicago. And that was also an exciting time here as far as record labels being based here that were putting out stuff that was had an audience. And so there were, like, I was playing in a band called Hubcap that started right in one of the early bands that was playing at the Fireside Bowl when the Fireside opened, and the Empty Bottle, within a year or two of them opening. You get just people are around town who are in bands, and it was an exciting time because you go out to shows, good shows, 4 or 5 nights a week. And I used to have energy and be able to stay up late and do things like that.
But that is no joke. That was the time. I mean, there's always good stuff going on.
It's one of my favorite things on Facebook, actually, is one of the Lounge Acts. I miss the Lounge Acts group, and people occasionally post calendars from, look at this calendar
at that stuff
from 1993 or 1995, and it's just this the month of February, whatever, and it's just filled with, if there's 28 days in February, and 20 of them are really like interesting shows, and part of that is a function of the fact that the music scene has changed, and part of it's a function that I'm much older now, twice the age I was at that time. But I don't get out to see shows that way anymore. But I hope that young people with energy are.
I mean, Dianoga was a really cool band. I remember playing Garden Airplane Trap on the radio.
Wow, look at you!
Look at me.
That's got to be like 3 people. So yeah, Dianoga started in January '95, and we Jason Harvey and I, Jason, the other bass player, we had gone to college together, and we'd lived together in a house, and just sort of incidentally played together, but kind of theorized about starting a band. We tried it out a little bit while we were in school, but didn't really take a stab at it together until he had finished up a band called Grover that he'd been in school. And I'd been the first bass player in a band called Braid, and then left that and was in Hubcap for a while, and then sort of that overlaid into starting Dianoga. And we were sort of never really fit in exactly anywhere, but we had a good time doing what we did, and got to travel a bunch, travel the country, go to Europe 5 times, and release a handful of records, and had a good time. And we're still, when it's not a pandemic, when there's no pandemic on, the 3 of us are playing together basically every Tuesday or Wednesday night with our friend Tom, who used to be in a band called C Clamp. And so we play as a band. We play as Whelms now, and still about halfway, 2/3 of the way finished with a record.
Awesome.
Yeah, sometime.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's talk about your career in art. You started, I guess it would be helpful to explain what screen printing is.
Yeah. Screen printing is a very old industrial style printmaking, not typically recognized as a fine art generally. I did not study screen printing in school. I studied painting. About a year and a half after I was out of school, I got asked to illustrate a screen print poster for Wesley Willis Fiasco, Rocket from the Crypt, and Super Suckers. And so this was fall of '95. My buddy Andy Mueller got asked to do this job, and he asked me to draw something. We went together, and Andy had previously worked in a t-shirt screen print shop, so he knew a little bit about preparing films. We went and found a guy who was printing at the corner of Fullerton and Western, and so we went over there, and I met Steve Walters, and sort of long story short, kind of hit it off, started working with Steve over the winter of '95, '96. And
so Steve Walters, Screwball Press, really in that world.
So it was imagine a I don't know, a couple thousand square feet of raw space on the 3rd floor of a building. Bunch of the windows are gone. There's leaks. There's anywhere from
signal's a little choppy.
4 to 6 young people basically working around the clock. The next room over is Fireproof Press, which is busy printing shellac records and Rachel's records and Tortoise LPs and things like that, and run by John Upchurch, who at that time had just finished being in the Cocktails.
Yeah.
Hoy Dog Pondering practiced up in that space for a while. The Cocktails practiced up there, and so I learned to print from Steve Walters and Bob Hartzell. Bob ran lights at Lounge Acts, and we just basically screen printing. Let's get to this. Screen printing is basically at its most rudimentary level. It's pushing ink through a screen onto paper. We've got as most of the people in our community do it, use a screen, which is a frame. If I prepared this part, I could run into the next room and actually have props to show you. A frame like a window frame or a picture frame. On one side, it's stretched with a synthetic polyfiber mesh, which used to be silk, which is why it's called silk screen printing. And that gets coated with a photosensitive emulsion. The photosensitive emulsion gets exposed to bright light, and becomes non-water soluble until it's, well, I'm sorry, I'm trying to do this without props to explain. Basically, when you're printing, you print a single color on all the different pieces of paper that you're going to print, and it's a physical printing that involves pulling a squeegee with arms, and it's sort of like a lazy rowing machine. And so if you're going to print, let's say 100 posters that have 3 colors, you might print the blue, and you print the blue on all 100 pieces of paper, and then you change your screen out, and you change to a different screen, and it's a yellow or it's a red or whatever, and you print that over the course of an hour or something like that on all 100 pieces. And then you go back, and this one's going to be the outlines, and it's got the band names, and it's got some other detail on it, and you print that, and you have to make sure all the inks line up with each other, and you have to make sure all the posters look similar and are legible.
I had only the most general idea of how this was done. That sounds like just a boatload of work.
It is a boatload of work, but it's an enjoyable process. And it's fun. It's fun to do, and it's the results are recognizably interesting. Like you can have a beautiful digital printout of something, and you've got a silk screen poster hung next to it, and it's, you can see the way the ink is sitting on the paper. You can see the ink laying on top of other layers of ink. Maybe there's a little thumbprint there. It's more than just a printed thing. It becomes an object.
Right. Each one is its own piece, really. I mean, right, because the ink isn't exactly set the same on, if you do a run of 100, there are little variations on each. So you own something special if you own one of those posters.
In theory.
In theory.
If you're doing it right.
I love it. So was the Wesley Willis one the first one you did? The first concert poster you did?
Yeah, that was the first screen printed concert poster I did. So I'd done.
Talk about that era when you're talking about those shows. I mean, Wesley Willis, Rocket from the Crypt, and who else was on that bill?
Super Suckers.
Jeez, I mean,
that was at the Blind Pig in Champaign. So I didn't actually get to that show, but right after that, it was I got to do, basically got to sort of, because of the community that we're in, like the next couple posters were things for tour posters for June of '44 and holiday shows for Shellac. And 1996 was a busy year, but it's like it's making Stereolab posters. So it kind of moved pretty quickly.
So there's a certain thing that I can't describe when it comes to concert posters. The posters are their own art pieces, and they don't always tie back to the artist, or they do in the most subtle of ways that us viewers may not notice. How do you approach, I mean, in your case, we see squirrels and all kinds of animals. How do you approach interpreting a band in poster form?
I think the best posters are ones that are going to reflect some aspect of the band, whether it's a concept from a song illustrated, or something that, if the band has an overall identity, it's something that pulls some aspect of that, or if it's maybe pulling some element from an album cover and sort of taking a little tangent from, if you're a real fan, you've noticed this on their album cover, and here we are redrawing that and then making it do something else, something like that. And sometimes you're making a poster for a show where the show itself has no common theme, and so it's Mission of Burma and Hank Williams III and Don Caballero, and you're just like, I'm just going to draw two guys beating each other with a platypus, and that's and that just ends up being just fine.
By the way, I would see that show all day long.
Yeah, I think that would be fun. So,
well, for example, I mean, it's one thing to talk about this. I think it's really helpful to show what your work looks like. And I asked you to compile 10 images that you're especially fond of or you like talking about. I love what you sent over, and I'm going to share my screen. I'm just going to have you talk about these posters. Is that cool?
Thank you.
If you're watching on Facebook Live, if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, this is going to be awesome. So I'm going to share my screen. And now you should be seeing this. Are you seeing your Jeff Tweedy poster?
I'm seeing Jeff Tweedy.
Okay, so Jeff Tweedy, 2007 benefit show. Tell me about this.
Yeah, Jeff, for a while there, I don't think he's still doing it. Maybe he is, but for a while there, he was auctioning off living room concerts to small groups of people. And this is maybe not the best example of what I was just talking about, but I tried for so long. Jeff is a distinctive character to his appearance, and he should be very easy to draw, but I keep trying, and I've never actually gotten his face drawn correctly. So all the Jeff Tweedy posters I've ever done for him, he's been facing the other way, or he's been obscured, his face facially obscured in some way. But this was a group of sort of Uber fans who would pool their money and make a substantial bid for his living room show annually, and the money went to a charity. I don't remember exactly. Oh, I'm sorry. It's for Letters to Santa, Chicago group organized by Heather Winna. But this, I think, more was just about the idea of sort of a small group and being sort of an intimate experience with Jeff.
Now, there are a bunch of fish and a torpedo.
Yeah, there's some sort of torpedo bomb situation there. I think this was maybe around this. Now, this was a couple years after. I'd made a print for TV on the radio that was, I think, sort of similar thematically. A couple years before this, I think. So.
I love it. All right, let's look at the next one. Speaking of shellac.
Yeah. So here we go.
This
example of, I love working with shellac. I had reason just recently to count the projects I've done with them. I think I've made 19 posters for shellac.
Oh man.
In the past 25 years. This was a fun one. They had toured Australia early in their career, and then they were going back in 2012. And so the only art direction that they gave me, they're one of my favorite clients. They always have sort of good, interesting art direction. They said, just draw some Australian animals. And
so those are wombats. Okay. Right.
No, those are the Tasmanian devils there.
Okay. All right.
So hold on a second, because they said, and also last time we were there, we came upon the sculpture of the dog on a Tucker box. I said, what is a dog on a Tucker box? They showed me this poem. And basically the idea is there's a poem written in 1837 or something about a miner underground in somewhere way out in the middle of nowhere, Australia. And he dies, but his dog basically waits at his lunchbox. And so there's a statue. It's like the same thing as if somebody had written a poem in 1860 about a particular rabbit in Chabance, Illinois, and they put up a big, and if they had put up a big monument to the rabbit of Chabance, Illinois, instead there's the dog on the Tucker box in the middle of nowhere, somewhere, Australia. During this period, everything I was doing for shellac had to have astronauts on it, so I made the dog into an astronaut. I made the Tucker box, which is Australian for lunchbox, into one of shellac's signature amplifiers. And then having spoken to one of my friends in Perth, Australia, he suggested the inclusion of drop bears, which they don't tell Americans about until we get there. But drop bears are 3-foot carnivorous koala bears. So we put a couple of drop bears in there. And then this was also during the Tasmanian devil were having the plague at this time. So I decided not to infect any of these guys, but one of them's wearing a top hat. I don't remember the reason for that. And then the other valuable lesson I learned while making this print was the plural of platypus is actually platypodes. So
I didn't know that.
I didn't either. So it's not platypi, it's platypodes. So they've got 10 platypodes there. And so that's about everything I can tell you about this.
I love this. And the story of the dog in the Tucker box really makes that. It's a sweet story, actually.
I hope to see it someday myself.
Oh, look at this. Your champagne roots coming back. Poster children. What a gorgeous picture.
Thank you. Poster children were, when I was in school, they had signed to Sire Records, and they were the big rock stars in town. They were the ones who were on MTV, and then you'd also see them out on the quad, or see them at some show at the Blind Pig or Mabel's or Chin's, and get all flustered because there's Rose. Oh my gosh! So those guys are lifelong computer nerds and used to take a computer on tour with them, I guess, to blog from the road, using dial-up back in the day. And they, at this point, what year was this? 2016. I think that they hadn't toured in a little while, and I was picturing sort of the band as sort of some aspect of it being like an old Apple IIe, sort of being booted up and coming to life again after a couple of years of staying home. So I particularly like this print. So
I love it too. So what's written on the monitor? Are those lyrics?
Yeah, I think it's lyrics. Let me see if I can.
I was trying to look around my microphone to see if I could read it.
I want to say it's something off of Daisy Chain Reaction, I think. I'm guessing it's Days Will Be Numbered and You Will Be Numbered, Scarlet Tattoo on Your Arm. That's what I'm guessing it's that song.
Yep. And I love what you were talking about earlier about those little subtle things that tie back to the band. I mean, there's the 25 on the back of the computer, their 25 anniversary tour, 25th anniversary tour, little things like that, the lyrics on the monitor, the obvious nod to the fact that they have always been technology focused. I mean, Read the Fucking Manual was the name of one of their albums. This is great.
Thank you.
Let's talk about this. I saw this in a library.
Oh, excellent. Was that our library here in Skokie?
It was.
Excellent library. So I get to do a lot of concert posters, but then I also get sort of feel like my job as a poster maker is to sort of do a little bit of a PSA work. And so when Trump was elected, I felt like I wanted to do something about that, but I felt like there were going to be enough sort of middle finger posters and posters of Trump, on fire, and that nobody was going to really, like, you weren't going to want to hang that on your wall. It's funny to look at, but I decided to try and take a sort of a positive spin on that stuff and sort of reinforce the things that we culturally would probably need to address. This is one of the first things I made, I think, after the inauguration, I think. Now is our time to read, and I consulted with a bunch of my friends who are more literary than I am about what we should, as a culture, be reading at this point. And so I got a lot of recommendations and put those all on the spine. So we got Rebecca Solnit right there in the front. And I can't even.
Well, there's Margaret Atwood, there's Chomsky, there's Stevenson, and
Coates, and which is actually what I'm reading right now. I see shout outs to, for example, Joe Mino and Megan Stilstra and Jessica Hopper, for example. But,
here's Vonnegut up front.
Yeah.
Very nice.
There. So anyway, that I ended up reprinting. I think what we've seen here, I think, is the second edition. But I ended up reprinting that poster, and I've been told it's in a lot of libraries around. So
I love it. I've got to ask the obvious question: is Michael Chabon on this poster?
I would assume he is, but little guy in the front row, in the middle, right behind him.
There it is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there. Okay.
Yeah.
Because of course you did a book cover for him.
That was a weird and special project. Yeah, I got to do a cover for his novella, The Final Solution, which is sort of a story of never specifically named gentleman who obviously is Sherlock Holmes, late in life during World War II, showing that he's still got it with a young Jewish boy who has lost his parrot in the English countryside.
And for context, I mean, this was his first release after Cavalier and Clay. So I mean, at this point, I mean, he was white hot in the literary world.
Yeah, it was an exciting, and it actually is funny. In one in one ding of the email, I got two emails. One was asking me to do that book cover, and the other one was asking me to design a snowboard for Burton Snowboards. And I thought that was pretty great. And so those two projects are what I had to stop the way I was working and learn to use Photoshop. So that project was the first time I used Photoshop to color an image. So, but yeah, that was a lot of fun to get to do.
I bet. Okay, let's keep going here. The National.
Yeah, the National. This was during a time, I think, right after Boxer came out, and I was listening to Boxer a lot and sort of picturing young, moneyed New York gentlemen sort of tumbling through the night sky through social life in Williamsburg and whatever this is, 2010. So that's my take on that. It was also fun to draw that suit.
I bet it was. So we haven't really touched on the animals.
Oh yeah,
the various creatures that find their way into your work. I guess explain or tell me about that. Tell me about your love for these creatures and the fact that you use animals as opposed to humans.
It's a discussion I actually had with a client today, because there are animals that are animals, like, you know, a dog on a leash or a woolly mammoth standing in a field. But then there are animals as stand-ins for humans, like we've got here on the National poster. And I think the easiest, the easiest thing to say about that is that they're not a particular human. So we have just a rabbit, you know, and it's people can kind of project whatever kind of person they want to see into that rabbit. Or if you backed up a couple slides, and that now is our time to read print, we've got, you know, there's no specificity about, are these people old or young? Are they of one gender, another, certain race? Why isn't such and such group not represented? Because you know what, it's woolly mammoths and wombats and whatever these guys are.
I love it.
Yeah. Thank you.
The colors on the talk about a poster that just pops. This is such a vivid piece right here.
I mean, it's for Brazil, so I mean, you can't go halfway with a skateboard team going to Brazil. So psyched to get to do something for a bunch of top pro skaters, including of course the venerable Tony Hawk. But yeah, they did this. Now, I was mentioning earlier Andy Mueller, formerly of Chicago, formerly of Ohio Gold Records, an Ohio Girl design company here in Chicago. And so he is now one of the senior designers at Lakai Shoes in Los Angeles. And so they needed a tour poster for these guys going, these 6 skaters going for demos in Brazil. And this is what came up with, sort of trying to represent everybody in there, hitting the coping at the same time.
I gotta say, I can't skateboard to save my life, but I want to go skateboarding with those guys.
That would be fun.
They look like a good group.
They would bounce when they hit the ground.
First of all, before we talk about this poster, and I believe you have another one of this band, can we just talk about how great that new Hum album is?
Oh my God, it's so good. So Hum is this band that was started in the late 80s in Champaign. And I got to my freshman year in Champaign, and I'm in this drawing class, and there's this one guy who seems a little bit older than everybody else. And I eventually learned that he's in a band. And then I'm finally borrow an ID, and I'm going out to the Blind Pig, and I get to see this band Hum, and it's the guy from my drawing class playing bass. But Hum is a favorite. My first date with I went on a first date with a girl in '92 And now we've been married for 20 years this month, and
That's awesome.
and that's the effect hum has on people. So yeah, they released their third studio record came out in '98, and then they've sort of played intermittently, like roughly they sort of get back on the horse roughly every 18 to 24 months and play a show or shows. But last couple of years they've been working on this record, and they dropped it surprise on everybody about a month ago or so.
And it was one of the most well-timed releases because we were all starved for content. I mean, we were all, I think it was in June when they dropped it, and it was the right record at the right time. We all, I mean, it's so
good.
It is so good.
You think like a bunch of guys in their 50s dropping a record after having not, 22 years after their previous one, and your expectations are kind of low, and it exceeded all of them. So these are a pair of posters for an East Coast and a West Coast tour they did in, I want to say 2015, maybe 2015, 2017. But they were going out for about a week in each direction, and I wanted to make two posters that match up that work together. So compositionally they're similar. The background sort of gradations allow you they match up between the two prints, so you can hang them either right or left. Both edges match up, so you can do the whales on the left or the whales on the right. And
that's so cool.
So
I'm looking at this, just the way you have the band's name and that big kind of comic book logo, just the 3D look and feel of this stuff, and then the flowing lines in the background of this one too, and just these look like they were a lot of work to put together, a lot of time spent. When I opened up your files yesterday, I'm like, oh my god, these are the showstoppers for me, these two hum pieces.
There are a couple different things going on here, and I don't remember specifics, but I want to say that both of these are unusual for me in that these are actually CMYK prints. So there are a lot of little dots of cyan, magenta, yellow, and black ink. There's certain tweaks to that, but that's something that I've been doing more of, screen printing here, but it's not historically the way that I work. But you get a lot of nice subtle gradation that's not otherwise easy to get. So
they're gorgeous.
I had somebody helping me print at that point who was particularly good at that.
Really great stuff, Jay. All right, let's see. We've got, well, first of all, let's just admire the lineup here of the Hideout Block Party 7 years ago. Mavis Staples, Nico Case, the Hold Steady, Super Chunk, the Walkman. I mean, Langford. Yeah, I mean, this is insane. And yes, we all miss live music. What was the inspiration for the image here?
Okay, so this was in the lot in front of the Hideout, which is also where all the garbage trucks park overnight, right in front of the city, one of the municipal warehouse buildings that's now going to be part of the Lincoln Yards. I haven't been by there in a while. I don't know if any of those buildings are still standing, but okay, so I was picturing sort of a stiff breeze coming through and sort of all the garbage trucks wafting up into the evening sky. But so these posters didn't need to be finished ahead of time. They just needed them before the show. So I got them turned in before the show, and then I bet a bunch of the people listening have met Tim, who's one of the owners of the Hideout, Tim Tooten. And Tim called me, see, this is Friday, September 6th. So Thursday night around 5, Tim calls me and says, hey, we need a banner to hang on the stage behind the band. Can you make that happen with the garbage trucks? And so I said, yeah. And I got I scanned in one of the prints, and because this was created by hand, scanned in one of the prints, and I messed around with it in Photoshop and doubled it, and the proportions were all different, but basically stretched it out so it was about maybe twice as wide as it is in this poster. But it was just the picture of the garbage trucks and the leaves and the moon. And 11 o'clock that night, I sent the file over. The vinyl printing company turned it into a banner overnight. And by 9 a.m. the next morning, they had this giant banner hanging at the back of the stage behind the bands. The guy who ran the garage that repairs all the garbage trucks saw the banner and loved it. And so the Hideout gave him that banner. So it hung on the side of their building for years.
So great.
And then they moved it inside. And so it was hanging like in the garbage truck repair place for quite a while. So I assume they're moving that somewhere else. I don't know what the fate of that banner is at this point, but yeah, it was a fun
What
project.
a great story. What a great story.
Thank you.
Guided by Voices. This is one of your more recent works. Now this looks a little dark.
Well, I mean, is it appropriate for Guided by Voices? I mean, it's a bit of a mess, but it's beautiful at the same time.
Well, what would have been appropriate for Guided by Voices is if you had finished the artwork in about 90 seconds. I
didn't say I didn't. I might have been printing midday New Year's Eve. I don't know. No, this was a really fun one to do. This was inspired by the work of a German printmaker who was active in the 70s, 80s, and into the 90s, named Horst Janssen. And I became interested in his work while I was a painter in undergrad, and learned about his work just before he died. He was etching a copper plate in acid on the balcony outside of his building, and the balcony broke free, and he fell some number of stories to the ground with this acid bath, which eventually blinded him, and I guess he eventually died from that. But he a lot of the work that he made was beautiful etchings and prints of like dead flowers or roadkill that he had found. And I somehow just sort of felt like some very, very tired flowers might be right for this show. So I was really happy.
Look at how many colors, I mean, or variations of colors you have in those flowers. As I'm looking closer, you've got a lot going on in here.
It's for Guided by Voices, you know, and there's a lot going on. So, but yeah, I'm happy with the way that turned out.
Very cool. Back to happy animals. Are those triceratops?
Yeah, some triceratops, you know. Again, sometimes it's not even just a PSA. Sometimes it's just a picture of animals doing stuff. This is called a chosen clouder. I learned in the process of making these that a group of cats is called a clouder. And this was sort of about a couple of different friends who kind of had to go through the process of finding their own families, maybe not their birth families, but sort of creating family where they could find it amongst friends. And so this is you know, sort of a cat making the best of the situation and hanging with his new best buddies. So that's
well, that would be, I mean, as cool as, you know, the Guided by Voices poster would look cool in an adult's home. This would be lovely for a kid's room.
It's also good to hang where your 3-year-old can check it out. Count the triceratops.
The breeders.
I was driving somewhere. I was driving on like long distance, somewhere far, and in the middle of nowhere, my phone starts ringing, and it's a number. I see it's a Los Angeles number, but it's a number I don't recognize, and foolishly I answered it. And it's not often you get a call from Kim Deal while you're
Nope.
driving down the highway. But the breeders were doing the 20th anniversary of Last Splash, and the cover is by Vaughn Oliver, who's a designer that I've always admired, very known for the 4AD record label and a bunch of amazing record covers. They wanted to, they were touring, playing the entire Last Splash record 20 years after it had been released. I wanted to sort of take the record cover and sort of do my take on advancing it 20 years. Like it's sort of taken root, it's grown, it's expanded, and so that's what happened here.
I still, that was such a fun album. There's a song in there, one of the only ones where both Deal sisters have writing credits. It's like 2 minutes long, called I Just Want to Get Along. It's one of those songs. It's such a short song. You wish it was like double its length because it's so good, and it just ends too soon. But yeah, I mean, obviously Cannonball, but Divine Hammer and Aloha,
Yeah.
New Year. Oh
yeah, it's an amazing record, and to have that and the pod like in quick succession, it's amazing.
I saw the Breeders open up for Foo Fighters a couple years ago at Wrigley Field, and I'm watching this thinking, I need to see this show in a club. Wrigley Field just it didn't feel right. It needs to be dark. I need to be surrounded by people, and it needs to feel kind of dangerous and dirty, and that's not the way Wrigley Field felt.
Was that Foo Fighters at Wrigley Field? Was Naked Ray Gun? Did they also play?
That was not that show, but Dave Grohl does his regular pandering to Naked Ray Gun fans, where he tells the same story about the Cubby Bear.
Okay.
Every show. Yeah.
Jason Narducci. Yes.
Uh-huh.
We know that.
I'm guessing this is a relatively new one.
How can you tell? Again, sort of, and I'm trying to take a sort of a positive spin on negative events. Sort of wanted, since March, have kind of had a hard time trying to work and trying to feel like there's good reason to sit down and do my job when all that's going on in the world is going on. So I've tried to focus on things that kind of take the positive aspect a little bit. But so yeah, we've got these two characters, or well, it says it spelled out right there, but they're each in their own homes, isolating, but they're still in contact with each other.
There's something so wonderfully innocent and pure about this. It's such a nice pendulum swing from the existential dread we're all feeling right now. This really is just charming. I looked at this, thought this is a very sweet, charming illustration.
Thank you.
We need to see more stuff like this.
There's a place for drawing the existential dread as well, but it's not in this print.
No, it's very sweet. So for people who want to get a hold of your stuff, first of all, there are books, there are collections of your art that they can get. Yeah.
I've got a website. It's called thebirdmachine.com. I've got 3 books that have been published over the years in 2005, 2009, and 2015, collecting my favorite prints I'd made in the years leading up to each of those releases. Those books are published by Akashic Books in New York. I have them here in my shop. They're on the website, and prints are available on the website. It's going to be a busy print week right now, which not something I've been able to say recently, but got 5 prints that in theory I'm actually going to be starting after I'm visiting with you here. I'm going to start getting some paper cut this evening and working on some films. But
it's feast or famine, isn't it?
Well, it's a function of trying to parent somebody who's starting 4th grade during a time where both my wife and I run our own businesses, and we try to make sure that the 9-year-old who can't go to summer camp, has full days and enjoyable days. So I sometimes work until midnight or
Yeah.
starting at the crack of dawn. So, and
Yeah,
not
it's
during,
tough.
it's mildly annoying, but there are a lot of other people that have a lot worse problems. So
There you go. So the website is thebirdmachine.com.
correct.
We can get your books, and we can order prints on there too, right?
That's true. Yes. And then in the room right behind me here, that they'll get packed up and shipped from the post office that's right over there. So
I love it. There's a new brewery right down the street from your place now too.
Yeah.
Your neighborhood's shaping up.
Yeah. Well, I hope so. Sketchbook Brewery just moved from a very small space in Evanston to a very large space about 3 doors down here on Main Street in Skokie. I've been past there. I haven't actually been in for a couple of reasons, including I don't drink beer and there's a pandemic. But
besides that,
still welcome to them in the neighborhood.
Yes,
with open arms. So.
Absolutely. All right. So again, thebirdmachine.com. I love your work, and my only regret is I didn't reach out to do this sooner with you, because I loved having you tell the stories behind the stuff you do. And I'm telling you, those concert posters, those hum posters, the GBV, great stuff. Really nice job.
Thank you very much. Thanks for reaching out.
I want to thank everyone for watching. For those of you who are watching on Facebook Live, Rob says the AV Block Party print is one of my favorites and currently hangs in my kitchen. KW says some of my favorite gig posters, including some of my own bands. Jay's work is amazing. And so it goes. Lots of nice comments. Nice. Jay Ryan, looking thin. You're looking quite svelte, and
thank you.
You never know what you're going to get. Anyway, I'm going to stop the Facebook Live. Thank you everybody for watching there.